The town didn't announce itself when she crossed the county line. No sign, no welcome. Just a narrowing of the road and a quiet pressure in her chest. She hadn't felt in years. The radio faded into static, then silence. She didn't remember turning the volume down. Some places asked for quiet without speaking. Her name was Eleanor Brooks, and she hadn't said it out loud in this town in almost 20 years. The houses appeared slowly, spaced farther apart than memory allowed. Porches sagged, curtains stayed still. Porch lights were off, even though dusk had already begun to settle. It wasn't that the town was asleep. It was watching. She passed the turn she should have taken, then another. The rental car smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and unfamiliar fabric. Temporary. Like the life she'd built somewhere else. Clean, portable, easy to leave. Coming back had never been part of the plan. It had been a threat she made to herself when she was younger. The kind you assume you'll never have to keep. The call had come 3 weeks earlier. Short, procedural. A stranger's. Voice using her mother's. Name like it was a line item. An accident. No details beyond what was required. When the call ended, Eleanor sat on her apartment floor for a long time, back against the couch, wondering when grief had learned to arrive so quietly. She turned the car around at a gravel pull-off, the tires crunching like a confession. Main Street was narrower than she remembered. Storefronts had changed hands without changing purpose. The bakery was now an insurance office. The bookstore had become storage space, its faded sign still clinging to the brick like it refused to let go. She parked across from the courthouse even though she didn't need to. The building looked unchanged. Square? Stubborn? Its clock stopped at an hour that no longer mattered. She stayed in the car, keys warm in her palm. This was as far as she'd ever let herself imagine returning. Everything beyond this had been a blank space, a deliberate omission. Stepping out felt colder than the forecast promised. The chill slipped under her coat, through the seams as if it knew exactly where to go. Her boots echoed too loudly on the sidewalk. She slowed, suddenly aware of how unfamiliar her own body felt here. She had learned to walk differently since leaving. Faster, purposeful. Here, every step felt like it needed permission. The house waited at the end of Maple Street. Smaller than memory, heavier. The paint had faded into a tired off-white. The porch railing leaned slightly, chipped and uneven. The front window was dark. No light left on. No sign of preparation. It didn't look neglected. It looked finished. The key resisted when she slid it into the lock. The door opened reluctantly, wood creaking in. Protest. The air inside was stale but familiar. Dust. Old paper. Something sharper beneath it all. She didn't turn on the lights right away. The furniture was still there. Couch, table, the armchair by the window, where her mother used to sit, legs tucked beneath her, pretending not to watch the street. Everything felt paused. Mid-sentence. Eleanor set her bag down by the door and moved through the room slowly, touching nothing, as if contact might wake something that preferred sleep. Her mother's bedroom door was closed. She stopped in the hallway, heart accelerating without reason. The handle was cold. Inside, the room smelled faintly of lavender and something medicinal. The bed was made too neatly. The dresser bare except for a single photograph turned face down. She didn't pick it up. That night, she slept on the couch with her coat still on, and the lights off. Sleep came in fragments. When morning arrived, it did so without ceremony. Thin gray light slipping through. The curtains. She made coffee from a tin she found in the cupboard. It tasted wrong. Too bitter. But she drank. It anyway, standing at the sink and watching the backyard. Time had moved here, just differently than it had for her. There were papers to sort, deeds, accounts, practical reasons for her return. She told herself. That was all this was. Something finite. Then she opened the first drawer of her mother's desk. Inside was a stack of envelopes, all addressed to her, dated years apart, unsent. Her name, written in careful handwriting, stared back at her from different points in time. The ink, darker in some places, faded in others. Her mother had always pressed hard with her pen, as if afraid the words might disappear if she didn't insist on them. Eleanor chose the oldest envelope first. The letter talked about small things. Weather, a neighbor's dog, a recipe she thought Eleanor might like now that you're living a real adult life. There was no accusation, no bitterness, just presence. Each letter carried the same tone. Steady, patient, as if distance were temporary. As if Eleanor might walk through the door any day. The later letters were shorter, the handwriting less confident. Doctor appointments mentioned, without explanation. Time passing without markers. The last letter was only 3 sentences. She hoped Eleanor was happy. She understood if she couldn't come back. She loved her. Eleanor pressed her palm flat against the desk, grounding herself. The house felt closer now. Listening. That afternoon she opened the attic. Dust drifted immediately, catching the light. Boxes were stacked in careful rows, labeled in her. Mother's tidy script. Holidays. Taxes. Photos. Near the far wall was a smaller box with no label. Inside were notebooks. Not diaries. Records. Dates. Names. Short entries written in a factual tone. Some pages blank. Others dense with detail. Property transfers. Meeting notes. Patterns that didn't mean anything on their own. Until they did. At the bottom of the box was a folder clipped shut. Inside were copies of documents. Zoning changes. Approvals. Transactions that had reshaped the town quietly without asking. A note was clipped to the front. If you ever come back, start here. The knock at the door startled her. It was a woman about her age from next door. She brought soup. Spoke gently, said her mother. Had talked about Eleanor often. Said she was proud. That night, Eleanor went to a community meeting beneath the courthouse clock. She listened. Watched. When a development proposal came up, one she recognized from the notebooks, she raised her hand. She didn't accuse. She asked questions. Why hadn't it been listed publicly? Why no community vote? The room shifted. Answers grew careful, vague. That was when Eleanor understood. This town didn't fear noise. It feared attention. Over the next weeks, she paid attention. She read, cross-referenced, listened. People began bringing her stories, documents, pieces that fit the map her mother had been drawing alone. Pressure followed. Polite warnings. Suggestions she consider her future here. A man from the town office visited once, his concern rehearsed. She documented everything. When the first article published, it didn't accuse. It asked. The response was immediate, defensive, alert. Things began to move. Slowly, unevenly. Contracts questioned. Meetings reopened. Resignation here. A silence there. Eleanor stayed. Not because she was brave, because leaving no longer made sense. One night she found a cassette tape in the attic, labeled with a single word. Voice. Her mother's voice filled the room. Calm and precise. If you're hearing this, she said, it means you came back. I hoped you would, but I didn't count on it. This isn't a burden. It's a choice. You don't owe anyone anything. But remember, truth doesn't need permission. It needs witnesses. Eleanor sat on the attic floor until the tape ended. Months passed. The town didn't transform. It adjusted. Slowly. Honestly. Unevenly. Eleanor unpacked her suitcase. Fixed a loose hinge. Learned which battles required patience. And which required presence. On a quiet evening, she walked Maple Street at dusk. Porch lights flickered on. People nodded. Some looked away. That was fine. She hadn't come back to close a chapter. She had come back because something here had been waiting. Not for a hero. Not for revenge. Just for someone willing to stay long enough to see clearly. And that, she learned, was the quietest kind of power.